Hello everyone. I'm Six Path Weeb, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Here, we dive deep into alternate storylines and reimagine the worlds we love. Today's fanfic explores a fascinating twist on the Naruto universe. What if Naruko became Konoha's greatest manipulator? A character driven not by strength alone, but by intelligence, strategy, and psychological mastery, reshaping alliances, outplaying enemies, and silently influencing the fate of the hidden leaf from the shadows. Disclaimer: this content is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any anime footage used, all rights belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, let's begin. The village hidden in the leaves was peaceful that night, wrapped in a soft blanket of moonlight. A young girl named Naruko Uzumaki quietly walked along the empty streets. She wore a white shirt with a red spiral on it, and her bright eyes carefully watched her surroundings. Whenever she heard a sound, she gently stepped into the shadows, hoping not to be noticed. Naruko didn't fully understand why people in the village seemed distant from her. She had recently left the orphanage, and now she was learning how to take care of herself. Even though things felt uncertain, she stayed determined. Right now, her biggest questions were simple ones: where to rest and how to find something to eat. As she wandered, Naruko came across a wide road lined with tall white walls. The walls were decorated with a fan-shaped symbol she had seen before. It belonged to the Uchiha clan. Naruko remembered that some members of that clan had not been very kind to her in the past, but she pushed the thought aside. Tonight, everything felt different, strangely quiet. She noticed that the large gates ahead were open. Curious, Naruko stepped closer and peeked inside. The streets beyond were empty, and the silence felt unusual. Gathering her courage, she walked in. Soon, she spotted a small bakery. Through the window, she could see rows of cakes and sweet treats neatly displayed. Her eyes lit up. She gently opened the door, and a soft chime rang out. "Hello?" she whispered. No one answered. Naruko stepped inside and approached the counter. She carefully took a small pastry and tasted it. Her face brightened with joy. "This is amazing," she said softly. Just then, she noticed something odd in the back room. The kitchen was quiet, and a tray of freshly baked bread sat untouched. It felt as though someone had been there not long ago. Naruko's smile faded slightly. "Is anyone here?" she called again. Still no answer. A little worried, she stepped back outside. As she looked around, she noticed shapes in the distance, homes with their lights off, streets empty of voices. The whole area felt like it was holding its breath. Suddenly, she heard a voice. "Help!" Naruko's head turned quickly. The voice sounded young, around her age. It came from deeper within the compound. She hesitated for a moment. Part of her wanted to leave and find a safer place. But another part of her, the brave and kind part, would not ignore someone in need. "I'm coming," she called, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Naruko ran toward the sound. After turning a corner, she found a boy sitting on the ground. He looked frightened and shaken. Nearby stood an older figure, but instead of danger, there was a heavy, serious feeling in the air, like something important had just happened. Naruko stepped forward, placing herself beside the boy. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. The boy nodded slightly. I think so." The older figure looked at Naruko with calm, thoughtful eyes. "You came all this way to help?" he asked. Naruko lifted her chin. "Of course. No one should be left alone when they're scared." The boy looked at her, surprised. "Why would you help me?" Naruko smiled, even though things still felt uncertain. "Because that's what people are supposed to do. We help each other." For a moment, everything was quiet again. Then the older figure turned away, his expression unreadable. "Take care of each other," he said quietly before disappearing into the night. Naruko blinked in surprise. "Wait." But he was already gone. She turned back to the boy. "Can you stand?" she asked. He nodded, and she offered her hand. He took it, slowly getting to his feet. "My name is Sasuke," he said softly. "Naruko," she replied with a cheerful grin. "Don't worry, Sasuke. You're not alone anymore." The two of them walked out of the quiet streets together, side by side. The night no longer felt as heavy as before. Though Naruko still had many challenges ahead, she felt something new growing inside her: hope. And sometimes, hope is the brightest light of all. Under the soft glow of the evening sky, Naruko lay on the ground, her heart racing as she tried to understand what had just happened. Moments earlier, everything had felt overwhelming, too loud, too confusing, too scary. But then, something inside her changed. It wasn't anger anymore. It was a strong, protective feeling, like a warm light growing in her chest. Please. Go away. Naruko called out, her voice trembling but firm. The stranger who had been standing nearby suddenly paused. He blinked in confusion, as if he had forgotten why he was there in the first place. Without another word, he quietly turned and hurried off into the distance. Naruko blinked in surprise. He left? She slowly sat up and looked around. The forest had gone still again. Then she remembered. Sasuke, she gasped. She quickly crawled over to her friend, Sasuke Uchiha, who was lying nearby. Sasuke? Can you hear me? She asked, gently shaking his shoulder. Please wake up. Just then, voices echoed through the trees. Over here. We found them. In a swirl of leaves, several ninja appeared. Among them was Iruka Umino, whose kind eyes immediately focused on Naruko. Hey, Iruka said softly, kneeling down so he wouldn't seem scary. You're safe now. Naruko hesitated. She didn't know if she could trust them. Her hands trembled slightly as she held onto Sasuke's arm. Promise. You won't hurt us? She asked quietly. Iruka placed a hand over his heart. I promise. I'm here to help you. Something in his voice felt warm and honest. Naruko slowly nodded. You can come closer, she said. The other ninja, who had seemed strangely frozen before, suddenly relaxed and moved again. They looked at each other in surprise, but Iruka didn't seem worried. He simply smiled and gently placed a comforting hand on Naruko's shoulder. You did really well, he said. You protected your friend. Naruko's eyes filled with tears, not from fear this time, but from relief. She leaned forward, and Iruka carefully wrapped her in a reassuring hug. For the first time that night, Naruko felt safe. As the group prepared to take Naruko and Sasuke back to the village, the forest no longer felt dark and frightening. The stars above twinkled softly, as if watching over them. Naruko looked up at the sky and whispered to herself, I'm not alone. And deep inside her, that warm light glowed a little brighter. Naruto's eyes slowly opened, but this time, something felt different. Her reflection in the small mirror beside the bed showed soft features, bright golden hair, and warm blue eyes. She blinked once, then twice. I'm Naruko? She whispered. The name felt right, like it had always belonged to her. Naruko sat up slowly, the hospital bed creaking beneath her. The room was still the same, plain walls, gentle sunlight, and the faint scent of medicine, but somehow, everything felt new. She rubbed her eyes and looked around. In the next bed lay Sasuke, resting quietly with tubes and wires attached. Naruko's expression softened. You look like you could use a good bowl of ramen, she murmured gently. Don't worry. I'll wait until you wake up, okay? She glanced down at herself. She felt lighter, thinner than she remembered, as if she had been asleep for a very long time. The morning sun stretched across the floor, warm and calm. Naruko rested her head back and closed her eyes again, letting the quiet comfort her. When she woke once more, the room was dim. Night had arrived. A nurse stood in the corner, checking on Sasuke. Naruko sat up carefully. Hello, she said softly. The nurse turned, startled. For a moment, her expression was unsure, almost conflicted. She walked over and checked Naruko's chart. Naruko studied her gently. Can I ask you something? She said. Why do people seem upset with me? The nurse paused. She didn't answer right away. Instead of raising her voice, Naruko spoke again, calm and kind. It's okay. I just want to understand. The nurse sighed quietly and sat down beside her. Some people are afraid, she admitted. There are stories. Old ones. They make people confused. Naruko listened carefully, her hands folded in her lap. But stories aren't always the whole truth, the nurse added, her voice softer now. Sometimes people forget to see what's right in front of them. Naruko blinked. And what do you see? The nurse hesitated, then gave a small, uncertain smile. I see a girl who woke up and asked a question instead of getting angry. Naruko thought about that. Then she smiled, bright, warm, and a little hopeful. Then maybe I can help people see that too. The nurse nodded gently and stood up. Get some rest, Naruko. After she left, Naruko looked over at Sasuke again. I think we both have things to figure out, she said quietly. But we won't have to do it alone. Later, the door opened again, and an older man stepped inside, the Hokage. "Gramps," Naruko said, her face lighting up. The Hokage smiled kindly and pulled a chair close. "Hello, Naruko. It's good to see you awake." Naruko sat up straighter. "Gramps, can I ask you something important?" He nodded. "Why do some people treat me differently?" The Hokage looked thoughtful for a moment. Then he spoke gently. "Because sometimes, people don't understand what makes someone special," he said. "And when they don't understand, they become unsure." Naruko tilted her head. "Special?" "Yes," he said with a soft smile. "You have a strong heart, Naruko. Stronger than you realize." Naruko looked down at her hands, then back up again. "Then I'll use that strength," she said. "Not just for me. But for everyone. Even the people who don't understand yet." The Hokage's eyes warmed with pride. "That," he said, "is the beginning of a true hero." Naruko smiled brightly, her worries not gone, but lighter now. Outside, the stars shimmered quietly over the village, and inside the small hospital room, a new story had begun, one filled not with fear, but with courage, kindness, and hope. "Yes," the Hokage said gently, smiling at her, "many people know parts of your story." Naruko looked up, hope shining in her bright eyes. "Then, will they stop being mean to me?" The Hokage's smile softened with kindness. "I'm sorry, Naruko. Sometimes people need time to understand what they don't yet see. But I truly believe that one day, they'll realize just how wonderful you are." Naruko nodded, holding on to those words. Just then, the door opened quietly and a nurse stepped in. She moved calmly, adjusting the equipment beside Naruko's bed. Naruko watched her for a moment, then turned back to the Hokage, who had begun asking questions about her recent mission. Naruko hesitated. She didn't want to worry him, so she chose her words carefully. "Everything worked out," she said softly. The Hokage studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I trust you, Naruko. Rest well." With that, he gave her one last reassuring smile and left the room. The nurse finished her work and turned to go, but Naruko spoke up. "Wait." The nurse paused. "Yes?" Naruko tilted her head thoughtfully. Something curious lingered in her mind, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. But instead of asking too many questions, she simply smiled. "Thank you for helping me." The nurse blinked, surprised, then gave a small nod before leaving. A few days later, Naruko was discharged from the hospital. The Hokage had arranged a place for her to stay, and she eagerly went to see it. The building was old, and the walls showed signs of age, but Naruko didn't let that bring her down. "A place of my own," she whispered, smiling. "That's a start." Inside, she met the manager, who handed her the key. Though he seemed a bit gruff, Naruko simply thanked him politely and made her way upstairs. The room itself was simple, bare walls, a small window, and a creaky floor, but Naruko stepped inside with bright determination. "I can make this cozy," she said, placing her hands on her hips. "All it needs is a little care." And so, she began. She cleaned, dusted, and opened the window to let fresh air and sunlight pour in. By the time she finished, the room felt warmer, like it was beginning to belong to her. Her stomach rumbled. "Oh. Food," Naruko laughed, grabbing her small pouch of money. She headed out into the village, walking through the lively streets filled with shops and voices. She picked up some simple groceries and a few treats, carefully counting her coins. Then, with a grin, she made her way to her favorite place. "Ichiraku," she called happily as she arrived. Tucci, the kind owner, looked up and beamed. "Naruko. Welcome back." She sat down eagerly. "Hi, Uncle Tucci. I missed this place." Ayame stepped out from behind the counter and waved. "Naruko. You're looking much better." "I feel better too," Naruko said, smiling. "Can I have miso ramen?" "Of course," Tucci said, already preparing it. As Naruko ate, she listened to Ayame chat about her day. The warmth of the little ramen stand wrapped around her like a cozy blanket. Here, she felt seen. Here, she felt safe. After finishing her meal, Naruko sighed happily. That was the best. Ayame smiled and gently adjusted a cloth headband, tying it around Naruko's head. "There. You look perfect." Naruko touched it, surprised. "Really?" "Really," Ayame said. Naruko's eyes sparkled. She hugged both Ayame and Tucci tightly. "Thank you." When she finally left, the night air was cool and quiet. She walked back to her apartment, holding on to the warmth she had felt. Inside, she placed her groceries away and looked around her small but tidy room. "It's not much yet," she said softly, lying down and staring at the ceiling, "but it's mine." As sleep slowly carried her away, Naruko dreamed, not just of becoming Hokage, but of a future where she was surrounded by friends, laughter, and kindness. And somewhere deep in her heart, she believed that future was already beginning. Naruko woke up the next morning with a bright stretch and a cheerful yawn. Sunlight peeked through her window, warming her small apartment and making everything feel fresh and new. She smiled to herself and decided it was a perfect day to go shopping. She hurried to the bathroom, only to pause in surprise. "Oh no," she said softly. "I don't have a toothbrush or toothpaste yet." With a little sigh, but still determined, Naruko slipped on her sandals and headed out again. When she reached the same supermarket as yesterday, the shopkeeper spotted her right away. He quickly stood up and bowed deeply. "Welcome back," he said warmly. Naruko blinked, a bit confused at first. Then she remembered that she might have spoken a little too strongly the day before. She gave a gentle smile and stepped closer. "Hello. Your name is Kento, right?" "Yes," he said, straightening up. Naruko nodded kindly. "Kento, please treat me like any other customer. I'd like to shop normally, just like everyone else." Kento smiled and nodded. "Of course." Relieved, Naruko picked out a toothbrush, some soap, and toothpaste. She paid carefully, thanked Kento, and headed back home. After freshening up, Naruko felt much better. She brushed her hair, washed her face, and took a deep breath. Today will be a good day, she told herself. Soon, she walked over to the manager's room and knocked gently. The door opened, and the manager looked very tired. "Oh dear," Naruko said softly. "You don't look well. Did you get any rest?" "I don't remember much," he said slowly. "I think I stayed up too long working." Naruko felt a small pang of concern. She spoke gently, "You should rest. Taking care of yourself is important." The manager nodded and returned to his room to sleep. Naruko stepped back into the hallway, thinking carefully. She realized her words could have a strong effect on others, so she made a promise to herself. "I will always speak kindly and thoughtfully," she said. "My words should help people, not trouble them." With that, she stepped outside into the lively streets of the Hidden Leaf Village. Birds chirped, people chatted, and the breeze carried the scent of fresh food from nearby stalls. The world felt full of possibilities again. Soon, Naruko made her way to the tall Hokage Tower. She had been invited to visit and receive some support for her new home. She knocked and entered the office. Inside, the Hokage sat at his desk, smiling as he read a small orange book. Naruko tilted her head curiously. "What are you reading?" The Hokage quickly set the book aside and cleared his throat. "Oh, just something light." Naruko giggled. "It must be interesting if it made you smile like that." The Hokage chuckled, then said, "Well, since you're here, how about I teach you something special?" Naruko's eyes sparkled. "Really? I'd love that." The Hokage reached into a drawer and pulled out a thin, shimmering string. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. Naruko shook her head. "This is a special chakra string," he explained. "When you focus your energy into it, you can move it without touching it." He demonstrated, and the string gently lifted into the air, curling into a neat loop. Naruko clapped her hands in delight. "That's amazing. Would you like to try?" the Hokage asked. "Yes, please." Naruko held the string carefully and closed her eyes for a moment. She took a calm breath and focused. Slowly, the string began to glow faintly, and then, to her surprise, it wiggled and lifted slightly. "It's moving," she said happily. The Hokage nodded. "Well done. With patience and kindness, your abilities will grow stronger every day." Naruko smiled brightly, feeling proud and hopeful. As she left the tower, she held the string gently in her hand, already imagining all the wonderful things she could learn. The day felt full of promise, and Naruko walked forward with confidence, ready to grow, help others, and make each day brighter than the last. The Hokage nodded with a gentle smile. Indeed. This is how most Jonin can quickly tie tags onto their tools. By simply holding onto the string, they can guide it to knot itself. It also helps them set up clever wire traps much faster. Quite amazing, don't you think, Naruko? Naruko's eyes sparkled with excitement as she nodded again and again. She carefully took the string from the Hokage and tried to copy what she had seen. Slowly, she began to pour her chakra into it. but even the small amount she used turned out to be too much. Suddenly, the string jumped right out of her hand and shot straight up, sticking to the ceiling. Oh! Naruko blinked in surprise, looking up at it. It seems you used a bit too much chakra, Naruko, the Hokage said kindly, stroking his beard. What you need is practice in chakra control. Naruko tilted her head. What's that, Gramps? Chakra control exercises help you guide your energy carefully, he explained. You have a very large amount of chakra, almost as much as I do. That's a wonderful gift, but it means you must learn to manage it properly. I'm sure your teachers at the academy will begin teaching you soon. Naruko clasped her hands together eagerly. But what if I want to learn right now, Gramps? The old man chuckled warmly. I admire your enthusiasm, but you'll have to be a little patient. For now, you should head out. I still have quite a bit of work to finish. He reached into his robe and handed her an envelope. Here. This will help you get what you need for your home. It also includes your allowance for the month. Naruko carefully opened the envelope. Her eyes widened as she saw how much money was inside. All of this? For me? Yes, Naruko, the Hokage said with a soft smile. Now go on. There's a Chunin waiting outside to help you shop. Her name is Reka Hanabishi. Naruko blinked in confusion, and the Hokage laughed gently. Did you think I would let you wander around with all that money alone? You might spend it all on your favorite noodles before you even reach the first shop. Naruko giggled, scratching the back of her head. Maybe just a little, she admitted. She tucked the envelope safely away. Bye-bye, Gramps. With that, she skipped out of the office, leaving the Hokage to his towering stack of paperwork. Outside, Naruko noticed a young woman standing near the assistant's desk. The Chunin had dark hair tied neatly back and wore a standard vest over a sleeveless shirt. She seemed to be telling an animated story, waving her hands as she spoke. So like I was saying, the Chunin continued proudly, I was surrounded on all sides. I was completely out of chakra, and my teammates were nowhere nearby. I had to rely on my own skill to get out of that situation. The assistant raised an eyebrow. Reka, I've already read your mission report. It wasn't for ninja. It was for cats. And your teammates weren't there because you chose that mission all by yourself. Naruko couldn't help it. A cheerful laugh bubbled out of her before she could stop it. Reka turned, surprised. Hey! What's so funny? Naruko covered her mouth, still giggling. Sorry, that sounded very different a moment ago. Reka huffed, placing her hands on her hips. Well, it felt very serious at the time. Naruko grinned. I believe you. The assistant smiled, shaking her head. All right, that's enough. Naruko, this is Reka Hanabishi, the Chunin who will be helping you today. Reka, this is Naruko. She's your assignment. Reka blinked, then looked at Naruko again. Wait, I thought I was getting an important mission. This is important, the assistant replied calmly. Helping someone get settled is part of being a good ninja too. Naruko crossed her arms, though her smile remained playful. And I don't need babysitting. I can handle myself just fine. Reka raised an eyebrow, then smiled slightly. Oh? Then I suppose we'll see how well you do choosing everything wisely. Naruko met her gaze with determination. Deal. But you have to keep up with me. For a moment, they stared at each other. Then, both of them smiled. The assistant sighed softly, though there was a hint of amusement in her expression. Just remember, you two, work together. Naruko nodded brightly. We will. Reka gave a small nod as well. All right, let's get going. And with that, the two of them stepped out together into the village, ready for a day filled with new discoveries, friendly challenges, and the beginning of an unexpected friendship. Enough! The assistant exclaimed, her voice firm but controlled. Both boys froze in surprise. Reka, this mission was given to you personally by the Hokage, so you must complete it. And you, Naruko, will listen and let Reka help you. Do you both understand? Naruko blinked, startled, then nodded quickly. Reka followed, still a little shaken. Good, the assistant said, calming down. Now off you go. Soon, Naruko found herself walking outside toward the nearest furniture store, with Reka following a few steps behind. She folded her arms and muttered softly, clearly not thrilled about the situation. Reka, meanwhile, glanced around at the nearby shops, curious and alert. When they entered the store, Naruko's eyes widened slightly. There were cozy beds lined up neatly in one corner, soft mattresses stacked on top. Tables and chairs stood proudly in the back, and tall cupboards rested along the walls. Naruko turned to Rekka. "Look, we don't exactly get along," she said honestly. "Why don't you take a short break and let me handle this?" Rekka shook his head with a small smile. "I can't do that. The Hokage asked me to make sure you're treated fairly. I'm here to help you." Naruko sighed but didn't argue further. Instead, she walked through the store, carefully examining each piece of furniture. After some time, she chose a simple but comfortable bed, a wooden dining table with chairs, and a small desk where she imagined she could write or draw. When it was time to pay, Rekka stood beside her, making sure everything was handled properly. The shop worker, noticing Rekka's presence, behaved more politely than before. "Would you like delivery?" the worker asked. "Yes, please," Naruko replied, giving the address. Soon, the furniture was packed and loaded. One of the ropes slipped for a moment, and a chair wobbled, but Rekka quickly stepped in to help secure everything safely. Naruko watched quietly, appreciating his help more than she expected. They rode along with the delivery cart back to Naruko's home. The workers carried everything up carefully, arranging the room neatly. For the first time, the space felt warm and welcoming, like a place someone truly lived in. Naruko looked around, her expression softening. "It feels nice," she admitted. Rekka smiled. "Told you it would." "Well," Naruko said, turning to him, "your part of the mission must be done now." Rekka shook his head. "Not yet. I was told to help you until evening." Naruko sighed again, but this time there was a hint of amusement. "All right, then. What should we do next?" Rekka glanced around. "You don't have much food here. Let's fix that first." So the two headed to the local market. This time, things went smoothly. Naruko picked out essentials, soap, a toothbrush, and some simple food. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As they left, Naruko carried the bags, though they were quite heavy. Rekka noticed and grinned. "Hold on," he said, forming a quick hand sign. In a puff, another Rekka appeared. Naruko's eyes widened. "She can carry things?" Rekka laughed. "Yes, she can. It's a special technique." The clone cheerfully picked up the bags and hurried ahead. Naruko watched in amazement. "That's incredible." Rekka puffed up proudly. "Pretty useful, right?" Naruko nodded, clearly impressed. With their errands done, the two spent the rest of the day exploring the village. They walked through quiet streets, visited a peaceful park, and even climbed up to a high hill where they could see the entire village below them. The breeze was gentle, and the sky began to glow with the warm colors of evening. Naruko sat down, hugging her knees, and looked out at the view. "Today was actually really nice," she said softly. Rekka sat beside her. "I'm glad." Naruko smiled, a genuine, bright smile. "Thank you for helping me." Rekka nodded. "Anytime." For a while, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon. And for Naruko, it felt like the beginning of something new, not just a better home, but a better day, and maybe even a new friendship. "Ah. Could you teach me the shadow clone technique?" "Ah, no." Naruko fell gently to her knees, clasping her hands together. "Oh, come on, please. I promise I'll try my best." Rekka sighed, though there was a small smile tugging at his lips. "Naruko, that technique is restricted for a reason. I can't just teach it without thinking carefully. But I have a lot of chakra. The Hokage said I have almost as much as he does." Rekka blinked in surprise. "Really? That much?" Naruko nodded eagerly. Rekka placed his hand lightly on her forehead, closing his eyes for a moment as if listening to something only he could hear. After a few seconds, he stepped back, clearly impressed. "Well, you certainly have a great deal of chakra. More than many experienced ninja." Naruko's face lit up. "So? Does that mean you'll teach me?" Rekka rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "All right. But we'll take it slow. With that much chakra, control is the tricky part. This technique requires balance, not just power." Naruko stood up quickly, determination shining in her eyes. "I'll do it." For the next hour, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Rekka carefully guided Naruko through the hand signs and the idea behind the technique. "Focus," he said gently. "Don't just gather chakra, imagine what you want to create." Naruko tried again and again. Each time, she concentrated deeply, but her chakra would swirl too wildly and fade away. Again, Rekka encouraged calmly. Naruko paused, taking a deep breath. "Okay. I think I understand now." She crossed her fingers carefully, making sure her hands were steady. This time, she didn't rush. She imagined another version of herself, same smile, same bright eyes, stepping forward from her chakra. Shadow Clone Jutsu. There was a soft puff of smoke. When it cleared, Naruko blinked in amazement. Standing in front of her were 5 identical copies, each looking just as surprised and delighted. Rekka let out a low whistle. I told you to use a little chakra. Naruko laughed. I tried. That was me holding back. Rekka chuckled and gently ruffled her hair. Well, you did wonderfully. Keep practicing, and you'll get even better. I will, Naruko said, grinning. Soon after, Rekka waved goodbye. I should report back now. Can you make it home on your own? Naruko nodded confidently. Of course. She walked back to her small apartment, humming softly to herself. Once inside, she looked around at the tasks she had planned, organizing her things, arranging her space, and making it feel like home. She glanced at the clock. Oh. I wanted to finish everything tonight. Then she paused. Her eyes widened with a spark of realization. Wait. I can use my clones. Naruko quickly formed the hand sign again, and with a gentle puff, several clones appeared beside her. Together, they worked cheerfully, placing items neatly, folding clothes, and tidying the room. Soon, the apartment looked warm and welcoming. Naruko smiled proudly. We did it. Her clones smiled back before disappearing, leaving her with the memory of their teamwork. She realized something new. When her clones vanished, she could remember everything they had done. It felt like learning and doing many things at once. That's amazing, she whispered. The next morning, Naruko woke up feeling excited. She had a new plan, to visit the library and learn more techniques. With her shadow clones, she could study faster and explore so many new ideas. As she stepped outside, she noticed someone speaking with the apartment manager. Oh. Are you looking for me? Naruko asked politely. The visitor turned. Yes. The Hokage has asked for you. Naruko tilted her head, curious but calm. Really? I wonder why. As she followed along, her mind buzzed with excitement, not worry, but possibility. With her growing skills and bright spirit, she felt ready for whatever came next. And as she walked forward, the morning sun lighting her path, Naruko smiled. A new adventure was just beginning. Elsewhere, beneath the quiet roots of the village, a hidden chamber glowed softly with lantern light. A figure in a black cloak knelt on the smooth stone floor. Her white, dragon-like Onbu mask reflected the flickering light, giving her an almost storybook-like presence, mysterious, yet calm. Before her sat an older man with a serious face marked by time and experience. This was Danzo, the leader of a secret group known as Root, a branch of the village's ninja who worked quietly behind the scenes. What do you have to report, dragon? Danzo asked, his voice low and measured as he looked at the kneeling figure. The masked ninja bowed her head respectfully. Naruko is doing well, she replied. She has faced many challenges, but her spirit remains bright. According to her records, her personality is unchanged. She is still curious, energetic, and full of determination. Danzo listened carefully, his expression unreadable. She did try to give me instructions once, the masked ninja continued gently, as though recalling something almost amusing. But it came from her eagerness to learn and help. It was not out of pride, but rather her wish to grow stronger. I see, Danzo said, folding his hands as he considered this. Anything else? Yes, she answered. Following your guidance, I shared knowledge with her about a useful technique, the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruko was fascinated. She practiced with great enthusiasm and learned quickly. I also reminded her that guidance can make a difference, and she seemed grateful. She trusts me now. Danzo gave a slow nod. Good. You have completed your task well, dragon. There was a pause, the lantern light flickering between them. Or perhaps, he added quietly, I should call you by your true name. Rekka. The masked ninja remained still, but there was a quiet strength in her posture. Though she worked in shadows, her intentions carried a quiet warmth, watching over Naruko not just as part of a mission, but as someone who believed in the bright future of a girl who never stopped trying. Far above, in the open air of the village, Naruko laughed as she practiced her new technique, her clones popping into existence beside her in cheerful puffs. Each attempt filled her with joy, and every small success made her smile wider. She did not know of the quiet conversations happening far below, nor of the many eyes watching her path. But what mattered most was this: Naruko continued forward with kindness in her heart, turning every lesson into something hopeful, and every challenge into a chance to grow. Dear YouTube family, that's all for now. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more. Regards. 6th Path Weeb.